Dan Scanlon, director of Onward. This is a very personal story for you with your own father. Can you share what inspired this film?
Yes. First off, you're going to hear some crazy construction going on my building. It's been going on for like 2 years. I really apologize. But on that note, the story is based on my personal experience. My dad passed away when I was a year old. My brother was 3. We have no memory of him, as you can imagine. And we grew up always wondering who he was and how we were like him. And the movie was really inspired by that question.
Mm-hmm. And you also got a recording of his voice at some point, right?
Yeah, when I was 16, my aunt and uncle sent us a tape, an audio tape, because we'd never heard him speak. We had old home movies, but back then they were just footage, no audio. And my brother and I and my mom gathered in my brother's room, and we opened up this tape and we put it in and listened to it. And it was hours of my mom and family talking about my dad, whose name was Bill, but he wasn't in the room. He was always gone out like running errands, and the tape is winding down. And finally it gets to the very end and my aunt says, Bill, say something into the tape. And he says, hi. And they say, well, say something other than that. And he says, goodbye. And that was it. 2 words.
Words.
But you have to, for my brother and I, it was magic. It was unbelievable. Right. And so that was really the inspiration behind the, what if you could get one more day? What if you could meet or talk to this person?
Mm-hmm. And you put a version of that in the film when Ian listens to his tape of his dad over and over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, co-writer Jason Headley found a way to make that a moment in the film that really shows you Ian's longing to meet his dad.
Mm-hmm. So at what point did you get the idea of doing this film to pay tribute to him?
I think that at Pixar, we try to base stories on something personal, something emotional, for the hope that if it's a personal thing that happened to you, chances are it comes from a very real, honest place. And chances are that means that someone has had something like it happen. Maybe not exactly the same thing, but something like it will touch them and connect with them. And my story of my father and my brother and our relationship was like the most personal thing that had happened to me to that point. And I really was, through talking to friends and talking to writer Meg LaFoe, who met with me early on. She was the one in hearing about my relationship with my brother who really helped me point out why this was a story that other people might connect to. Mm-hmm. So from that moment on, I just felt like, as anyone here will tell you, we all spend 5 to 6 years on an animated film. You want to make it about something that matters to you.
Mm-hmm. How much of Ian's and Barley's personalities and relationship were based on you and your brother?
I think the nature of the relationship is my brother and I. My brother is the older one, and he's super, super supportive. And but my brother is nothing like Barley. He's not like a wild, crazy, partying guy. He's actually a really soft-spoken, sweet computer programmer. But he is like him in intention, meaning that he's always been supportive of me. He's always been encouraging. He's always been a father figure. And I think that I'm like Ian, or at least I was when I was 16, being shy and awkward and not super confident. And that was a big part of, I think, how I connected to the Ian character. And also terrified to drive to this day, which is a small little piece of Ian. I don't. And I live in San Francisco now, so I don't really have to drive. But I grew up in the Detroit area where everybody drove.
Oh, yeah. Come on, the Motor City, so.
I know. Yeah.
Did you guys have a Guinevere?
What's weird is I kind of feel like we did. I not a van, but my brother had a 71 Chevelle that he fixed up, which everyone in Michigan has, like an old classic hot rod. And it smelled like gas when it drove, and it was really loud. And we would drive around it, when we were teenagers. And it only attracted other kind of jerky guys with cars like that who wanted to race us like at every stoplight. And it was just so not, I wasn't really even his personality. We were both such shy people, but we had this big, loud muscle car. That
Nice.
was kind of Guinevere. I kind of had a love-hate, mainly hate relationship with that car.
I love that this takes place in this suburban fantasy world with no humans. So how did you guys land on that setting?
We wanted to be able to bring the father back, so magic was the way we thought would work best and be sort of the most romanticized. But we didn't want to make it like a classic fantasy film that would take place long ago, because it's a very personal modern story. And that's where the idea of, well, maybe we could have a classic fantasy film that take place now, and maybe that's where the humor will come from, is the juxtaposition of magic and elves and centaurs in our world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, the spells, like I noticed they all had these different types of animations, like whenever he did one. So how did you guys decide to approach animating those?
We wanted every spell to represent some challenge that a shy person who lacks confidence would need to get over in order to grow. So every spell had to be some challenge. And also we wanted magic to represent Ian's biggest fear, which is chaos. Barley is chaotic and comfortable with chaos. So we wanted the spells to look very naturalistic, but also like fireworks or lightning or something very chaotic. Was really the main thinking behind each spell.
Mm-hmm. What was it all like CG? Because it felt a little like throwback-ish, like the way it looked.
We actually did early on try two-dimensional stuff. We brought 2D folks in who designed really beautiful looking magic, but some of it got a little young looking for Ian and Barley. Like it started to look like stars or Lucky Charms or something. We wanted it to look more like a graphic novel, something that a teenager would think was really cool looking. And but that original two-dimensional work really inspired. It was CG, but it was really inspired by that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, at the end, when Ian defeats the golem dragon creature, he lets Barley have the final goodbye with their dad that he never got to have. And we never see that conversation. We just see it from Ian's perspective, which is very affecting given his arc. So did you always know you were going to like draw it and conceptualize it that way?
Yeah, even from the pitch 6 years ago, we always had that ending. The reason to make the movie for me was to thank my brother for being a father figure, and for audiences to appreciate the parental figures in their lives, the people that went above and beyond to help them become who they are today. So it was never really about Ian needing to specifically hear something from his dad. And to that point, I think audiences sadly can't meet their deceased families. So it felt like letting everyone know what was said wouldn't really be beneficial. It was more about the moment and more about the fact that Barley heard what he needed to hear, which I think one could assume was for Barley to say, I'm sorry, and that I didn't go in, and Dad to say that he understands. I mean, I think it doesn't really matter what was said. It's a matter that he got to say something to him.
Right.
So we always thought, I don't want to know specifically what's said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that scene was like never written at all with like.
It actually weirdly it was written, because we realized near the end, like, oh, we might get to Skywalker Sound and need something to punch through. So while we had Chris Pratt and Kyle Broadheimer, who played Dad, we wrote something up and we recorded it, and then we never let anyone hear it, not even the animators, because I didn't want them miming specifics from it. And in the end, all we used is the laugh. You can hear Dad laugh cut through.
Yeah, it is more poignant because I feel like nothing that we would see would kind of like live up to whatever that moment means for him. And it's also, we were so used to just seeing his legs throughout the whole movie. It's like we don't need to see like this whole thing like up close between the two of them. And the legs were a lot of fun. I love the whole Weekend at Bernie's aspect of that. Well, you guys actually released a real board game based on Quest of Yore, or it is Quest of Yore. So how did that come about?
It was such a cool opportunity to be able to have these brothers learning about magic through, you know, a game that would totally exist in their world and would be based on real adventures that happen in their world. And we all fell in love with the environment of the movie, that the idea of actually making a real game was something we were all so excited about that we all worked on it. I worked on it a lot as well. And we even started working on it before the movie was done. So we used some of the logic of the game to help the movie, which was really, really fun to build on that world. I'm not a big gamer, but I've learned a lot since then. And that kind of role-playing game is so great because it's about imagination, storytelling. And so I feel like to anyone who liked the movie, this game is an opportunity to go deeper into the history of that world and the characters of that world in a really fun way.
Mm-hmm. And the movie ends with them going on their next adventure. So could we see a sequel?
Yeah, you know, I don't know. It's funny. I feel like there's just so much, you know, hope of what they'll do next and excitement about what they'll do next, but more specifically their relationship, that Ian is going to start, you know, being less embarrassed by his brother and appreciate the brother he has. But I mean, of course, I love that world so much. And one thing that is fun is we have a comic book that Mariko Tamaki, who's one of the best comic book writers around, and I wrote together, that's a prequel to the movie, and it's all the story of the Manticore and her adventures in the old days.
She needs a spinoff. Yeah.
I felt like I was getting to do fan fiction. It was so fun just to relive that world.
Nice. All right, Dan, well, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time. And I feel like the construction guys cooperated during this, so thank you.
My cat was meowing.